When I was growing up, the FPS genre was front and center, completely dominating the gaming landscape. It all started for me when I got an original Xbox and played Halo 1 and 2 like crazy non-stop as a little boy. Eventually, this led me to an Xbox 360, where the majority of games I played were FPS and they were incredibly good. Specifically, two games were titans in the industry and were true benchmarks for all other competitive FPS games in my opinion: Halo 3 that released in 2007 and Modern Warfare 2 that released in 2009. Now, it's very hard for me to separate the nostalgia from the actual substance here. These two games in particular were so important in my life at the time. You see, my father bought me, my half-brother, and himself the Xbox 360 and these games. We were all separated throughout the country through divorce, and it was something that we would often do to connect every single weekend. Basically, these games could have been utterly garbage and they would still have a special place in my heart. However, I can say with utmost confidence that they were fucking amazing. Not only were these games fantastic, they completely set the bar to a whole new level. Replayability, depth, and quality, amazing campaigns, content, and even competition. These games came in like a storm of two existing franchises and managed to elevate them into supreme status. It was truly a great time to be an FPS gamer. The games were just fun. I remember playing every single day, going to school, thinking about the games, and all my real life friends would play it and everything just felt so connected. Not only that, but the ripple effect of the bar set by these games forced every game coming out to meet or challenge this bar. Basically, it created quality FPS release after release. Now, that being said, lately, FPS games have been failing to live up to the games from over 10 years ago. You know, that's not even correct. They have been tarnishing the legacy of entire franchises, and in a lot of ways, ruining gaming, period. So the ultimate question is, what did these old games do right that new games fail to do? What is the cancer that is destroying new FPS titles from the inside out? And in my opinion, it's summed up in two words: modern gaming. Back then, there was a certain expectation when purchasing a game. You paid a chunk of change for a game that was complete. Now, this doesn't mean zero downloadable content, because there was, or zero bugs, because those existed as well. That being said, extra content came out once there was high demand for it, and it felt like a fair value proposition in all directions. The game felt 10,000% worth the price of admission and then some. There was heavy incentive to grind and play the game more and more, and it was incredibly rewarding and fun to do. When new content came out, it was heavily demanded and priced fairly, all things considered. Now, directly compare that to today, where the incentive of games is not to make you play or enjoy, but to FOMO, fear of missing out, into purchasing more and more. There's a certain scene in a movie I love called Ready Player One, where the villain Nolan Sorrento talks about covering the VR view with 90% adverts. While this is supposed to be a parody of the far future, it's feeling more and more like the present, and directly reminds me of modern gaming. Now, this might be a controversial take, but in my opinion, there is nothing wrong with a completely free game charging purely cosmetics to fund their game. This allows for a low barrier to entry, and cosmetics don't affect gameplay, so hypothetically, you could play the game absolutely free. That being said, this is only in the case of complete games that deliver on the promises at launch. When a game releases that has more problems than features and peddles pure FOMO in-game purchases 24/7, or the devs just straight up promise future things and then abandon the game, you feel a huge disconnect between quality and product. In fact, sometimes it feels straight up like betrayal and theft. The problem isn't only free-to-play games either. The entire FPS genre and even gaming as a whole has made a huge push towards early access, hollowed out games, and even worse, many rely on the strength of the franchise itself to push sales. To name a few examples, Halo Infinite, Battlefield 2042, and the Call of Duty franchise as a whole. Now, what is the cause of this change from then until now? In my opinion, it can be summed up in three big things. 1, a profit-centric approach. 2, greed. And 3, a blatant lack of passion. Older games were made by teams of dedicated individuals. This was felt in the games itself, as obvious problems that gamers would face were never overlooked. Games felt like they were made by gamers and game lovers. Gig work, replacement, unfair working conditions, and profit-forward thinking has ruined this, causing many passionate people to move from company to company or leave the gaming industry altogether. Those who stay are rarely properly rewarded for putting in the extra effort. That profit-centric approach has slowly infested all gaming, but the FPS genre in particular has suffered immensely. Publishers' greed pushed profits at the cost of their IPs, players, and legacy. It's honestly just sad that this is the state of many of our franchises and even new ones that rely on Kickstarter campaigns or pre-releases only for the developers to decide that they would rather cut their profits at the peak and run away. When hype is high and profits are high, why would you stick it out and burn away your profits when you can just steal from the pockets of those that have already paid? Disgusting. Now, it's important to understand not all hope is lost. There are games that actually do listen to their fan base, stay part of the active live service, and at the very least, try to provide a quality experience. I would say Apex and Valorant are two, to name a few. But if there are other FPS games that in your mind do this, definitely let us know down below. Now, that being said, it is important to understand that you can do your part in fixing this problem. Not supporting half-baked games, empty promises, and never buying a single free-to-play cosmetic unless the developer has already earned that amount of money from you in your mind. Not simply on promises of the future or legacy from the past, the experiences delivered right now. Now, you can support the channel by checking out GameLeap, where we have many courses over esports titles like Apex, Valorant, Dota, League, and more. If you want to become incredibly good at any of these games, go check it out in the description right now, down below.